Welcome to Acoustic Guitar, Episode 18, Folk Fingerpicking Patterns, Volume 2. You know, back in Part 1 of the lesson, we were introducing a number of basic folk fingerpicking principles in respect to performing fingerpicking patterns in the folk style. But here in Part 2, we're going to be going a little further than that, and we're going to be developing slightly more complex fingerpicking ideas that will include alternating bass lines, fingerpicking patterns in compound meter, the use of single note melodic phrases between chords that are going to get a little bit more involved than before, and we're also going to have some arpeggio ideas. Plus, I even included a bonus Travis picking fingerstyle pattern I think you're really going to enjoy. So it's kind of jam-packed in here with lots of different ideas. By the end of the time that we have here in this lesson, I think you're going to have a number of new and unique folk fingerpicking ideas that you're going to be able to practice and eventually use in your own music as well. So let's get things started here in Part 1 of this lesson. In example number 1, we're going to do this alternating bass concept. It's also going to have some two-note chords spread through it. And, this is the feel as well that you want to get down with something like this too. It's very popular when you have these finger-picking patterns in folk music that there's a staple feel that's going across the chord changes. And that's exactly what we're dealing with here in example 1. The chord changes are involving F sharp minor, E major. There's a B, and then there's a C sharp, both minor chords. And the thing to remember about this is if you wanted to extend the quality of the B chord and the C sharp chord into minor 7s, that's another option. It's going to make it a little bit on the folk jazz side, but it is an option for you. Of course, this progression, as you could probably tell, is in the key of F sharp minor, so that's our primary key center. And let's just walk through what's happening here with the groove. It's very eighth note oriented, but it does have that idea of the anticipation, following suit into the upcoming measure. Now, on the downbeat of 1, where we're coming into that F sharp minor 7 chord, I'm working through that chord in stages. I've got the low bass tone with my thumb of the plucking hand. Index finger is going to be plucking on the 4th string for the flat 7 tone of E natural. Then my ring and middle fingers are going to be double plucking to grab the A and the C sharp on the upper portion of that F sharp minor 7 chord. Now, to be able to do a smooth and well-connected alternate bass, I'm going to change my fingering for moving over to get the C sharp, because the alternate bass in the case here of F sharp minor 7 chord is going to be C sharp. We're going to play that note here at the 4th fret of the 5th string, and then what we're going to do is bar with the index finger to catch those 2nd fret notes of A and C sharp, and eventually as well, the last E tone that comes in there. So we're moving up, grabbing that C sharp, getting the A and C sharp tones, and then coming back around there to the E again. So putting both of them together, we end up with this. So that's the very beginning of it. Now let's move over to the next chord, the E major. We're coming in on the upbeat of 4, and that's sustaining over into the downbeat of 1 of the next measure. And we're following through the same string sets, doing the same kind of pattern playing that we had from the beginning. Now, it's another important thing in folk fingerpicking is the patterns that get established, they tend to be very uniform across the measures. That way it's a lot easier to do your vocals behind what you're doing in terms of the fingerstyle parts. So keep that in mind too. We're coming into that E chord though, hitting another E octave at the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then we're getting the G sharp and the B as a double plucked 2-note chord, 3rd string and 2nd string open. Then what's going to happen is we're going to invert that E major chord. We're going to place down below in the bass there a G sharp, it's 3rd degree, and we're going to add in the B tone and this E tone up top, and we'll have another E placed over here at the 2nd fret of 4th string. So it's a bit of a stretched out fingering, a little bit of a reach there involved to get that. It's basically first inversion of the E major chord, keeping the G sharp in the bass. So we have the open position E major chord, and then we're moving into this inversion with the G sharp in the bass. So that's taking care of that second measure. You can isolate all these and make sure you understand what's happening, and you can also work at putting them together, you know. You can use 2 measures at a time just to drill the exercise. Then what's going to happen is we're going to move through our B minor and C sharp minor chords to follow suit through the last 2 measures of the progression. Now again, we're coming in there as anticipating the arrival of the 3rd measure by placing the B tone on the upbeat of 4. It sustains over into the downbeat of the next upcoming measure, the 3rd measure. And we're just walking across the chord in much the same way that we were doing with the other chords. Bass tone, and then we have our 5th. Then we have our octave and our minor 3rd. And then we have our alternate bass note that comes in. So we're transferring that low tone from the B over to an F sharp. And then we're kind of coming in reverse there to be able to take the high tones into the low tones. That's something else you probably noticed right off the beginning here with this fingerpicking pattern, is it kind of drifts upwards through the chord. And then after the alternate bass, we're going down through the chord. That's the B. And then moving up into the C sharp, it's very similar. Same alternate bass approach, you know, walking across there from the 5th string to the 6th string. And the same, you know, picking pattern across too. We've got that 6th fret 4th string, and we've got those 2 notes that come through there on the 3rd and 2nd strings there with the octave and the minor 3rd. Alright, so that's the entire cycle, and you can tell very, very steady 8th note pulse. The only thing a little bit different there is we lose the downbeat of 4, and we have the upbeat of 4 tying over into the downbeat of 1 of the upcoming measure. That's very integral feel for this, and it's something to, you know, keep in mind as you're developing it. And, you know, just get into a cycle, be able to move across the whole thing. You know, it's not that hard. You know, it's a little bit of an exercise to be able to get over to that inverted chord of the E major with the G sharp and the bass. But, you know, with some practice, it's going to be okay. You'll get that down. Also, like I was saying earlier, if you wanted to turn it into more of sort of a jazz folk idea, you could switch the B and the C sharp into the minor 7 chords. So that's an option. Bit of a subtle change, but you can tell there we have a little bit you know, of a jazzy sound to things as well. So we'll take a break at this moment and come back in a few seconds with the example number 2 idea, where we're going to go through some bass line melody, and we're going to get this one moving along in a compound meter. Another very popular idea in folk fingerpicking patterns is to use compound meters like 3/8, 6/8, 9/8, 12/8. We're going to have an example here coming up next in 6/8 time. Hi everybody, Andrew Wasson here from CreativeGuitarStudio.com. I've been a professional guitarist for over 25 years now, and I've been teaching guitar for even longer than that. But today I want to talk to you about your current situation by discussing the study of guitar and the time that you have available to put into it. If you're like most people, you're working a 9-to-5 job and you're working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, that's 160 hours a month. How much free time does that leave you left over to study guitar? Let's say you can maybe fit in an hour or so, around 4 or 5 days in a week when you have the free time. And if that is the case, wouldn't you want to make the most of that 1 hour of study, practicing a highly organized, step-by-step, well-structured guitar curriculum? Without a structured plan, it's pretty easy to waste time. You know, a lot of times it happens by just focusing on playing through a bunch of stuff you know, songs you know, riffs you already know, licks that you're familiar with. But practicing stuff you already know will not make you a better guitar player. You need a constant supply of fresh material. You know, if you practice guitar by just playing stuff you already know, before you realize it, time ticks on, time ticks by, and that valuable period of time that you have every day, it gets lost. If left alone, those hours lost every day turn into lost weeks, lost months, and then eventually lost years of wasted time. You'll still be the same guitar player that you were before because you never challenged yourself. I've seen it dozens and dozens of times in my own studio here. But you know, you can change that. In the valuable time that you do have every day, you can start studying a comprehensive guitar course that'll not only educate you, but it'll turn you into a well-skilled musician. So if you want to learn more, sign up for a free account through my website at creativeguitarstudio.com. The general access membership is absolutely free to join. Come in, get your feet wet, and when you're ready, you can go for the paid membership. What you'll discover in there is the most comprehensive guitar curriculum available online. Well, as you can tell here, for example, number 2, this is a nice, mellow feel, very beautiful sounding. And when you have this compound meter and you're moving through quite a number of chord changes, it just gives you this really cool sounding upper register idea when you combine it with this compound meter feel. So there's all these things happening, especially in the second half of this thing where we're dropping down and you're going through all these, passages. It just sounds great. So, let's work through this. There's a baseline melodic idea that can sound really present with this, and it's important to understand that compound meter feel as this moves along. The flow of the fingerstyle parts is something that's really important, and with compound meter, and especially when you're playing every beat with this, it really establishes your key center and allows this sort of cascading effect to happen with the key and how we're matching upper and lower melodic lines. Just really pay attention to the key itself and how it establishes itself through the measures. In the beginning of this passage, I'm just, this is a G major passage, and I'm just kind of starting off here from the G chord into an E minor. It's more like an E minor 7 though, because I'm bringing in the D sound quite heavily there. I'm going up through the G chord, and I double back into that 4th guitar string open. So I'm going across those tones, then back, and then I have this drop down with this low F sharp on the 2nd fret of 6th string, and I'm moving into the E minor 7 after that. And then really to punch that sound, I have this kind of lasting impression that's given off the open 3rd string G with that 3rd fret D tone on the 2nd string. That's giving you that nice E minor 7 sound. And then what happens next is we're moving through this C style chord. You can tell though it doesn't have an E in it, so it has that suspended 2nd effect. And then we're moving into this D chord, but then again it has no A. We're just bringing in this open 3rd string G, so it's kind of like the add 4 effect. Then it begins with this nice drop down that we start having here, and it's can be really noticeable when you isolate what's happening in the bass tones. How they're moving from E to D, and then C to B, and then A, back to that B, and then that's going to bring us back to the top on the G chord there. So nice descending walking bass line there, but then there's also all the work that's happening on the high register. You can hear the drop down there too, and you're combining them, and it's having this beautiful mix, with those open strings. That's that E minor sound, and then here's this like a D6 chord because the B is in there. And then we're moving into just a basic C major sound. Then a standard G with B chord coming in there, like you find in umpteen dozen songs. It's in Dust in the Wind and all that. Lots of Zeppelin tunes and so forth. The next chord, speaking of Zeppelin, A minor 7. Jimmy Page sure liked this voicing a lot. Dropping down into this nice B minor 7 color as well. And that's a nice, turnaround. Take us back into that G sound there. Really nice stuff. So this bass line, melody idea combined with the ideas of the upper register stuff and the compound meter. The compound meter is giving it the flow, you're counting constantly in that group of 6. If you're tapping your foot, remember in 6/8, like this progression is in, we're tapping it only twice. So it's kind of like, 2/4, but it's all triplets, that kind of idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just keep that in mind for your sense of timing and, the duration and all that. So anyway, that is example 2. Really nice sounds happening in there, and I really recommend putting some good effort into learning more, as much as you can, about what's happening with bassline melody, combined with the upper register flow of the tones, and especially, too, this compound meter design. It's really cool. So anyway, that brings us to the end of part 1 of this lesson plan. And coming up next in the members area, we're going to have part 2 where we have in example 3 a really nice single note melody line concept that's going to be happening with arpeggios. And I also have a really nice traditional Merle Travis style Travis picking pattern application. Lesson on folk finger picking wouldn't be complete, of course, without covering at least one Travis picking pattern within it. But anyway, we're going to wrap part 1 up now. And you know what? If you don't have a membership yet to creativeguitarstudio.com, I highly suggest that you get one. Now, out of anything and everything that's on the site, and there's a lot of stuff on the site, the main thing that I really would stress that you do is take the courses. The introductory program, the intermediate program, the advanced. These are very highly specialized courses. You are not going to find anything online like these courses. They're very detailed. I know most of the people that come into the site, they pick up the premium membership plan so they can download all the handouts and get all the MP3s. I think that's the best approach with it. There's so much information there, and I'm always upgrading it and making it better. I really listen closely to comments from the members, and if anything's out of sync, if anything's not 100%, if it's not making sense to one person, I go in there and I change it and I modify it and make it the best that I possibly can. These courses are very old too. I've been working with thousands of people in my studio with these as well. I've had these since 1992. Very interesting course. I highly suggest you go check it out. If you do have a membership, you'll be able to access part 2 of this lesson plan and get all the tabs and all the handouts sheets and everything for it, as well as many, many more lessons as well. So I hope to see you next in the members area at creativeguitarstudio.com. If you want to learn the modes and get a really good understanding for how they can be used musically to write songs, play a solo, or compose melody lines, then you're in luck. My ebook, Using the Major Scale Modes, is a comprehensive manuscript outlining exactly how modes are used in respect to harmony and to compose or improvise melodic ideas. Over 50 pages of scale patterns, example progressions, and music theory all come together to create a comprehensive method on how to use the modes that's easy to understand. Using the Major Scale Modes is available for instant download in the View Our Products area at creativeguitarstudio.com. Thanks for watching part 1 of the lesson. Be sure to sign up for a membership at creativeguitarstudio.com to watch part 2. In part 2, we'll study using single note lines with arpeggios, and we'll work on a Travis picking pattern. Plus, as a member, you'll also be able to download the handout for this lesson, along with many more professional guitar lessons. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up next in the members area.